You see on the right, this is real graphene oxide. This is bona fide, proven. On the left, where it says Muestra Vacuna, that is the AstraZeneca sample before they went to the electron microscope. So what we're seeing here is something we never knew before. And let me just say this. People have said to me, well, that's not listed on the ingredients of these companies. There are a lot of things that haven't been disclosed, okay? And if you remember correctly, there were countless pharmacists across the country who were asked to open the package insert that I've explained on many shows. That is it's a legal document that must accompany all products, drugs, medical devices. And when these pharmacists were asked to open the vials, the packages, and pull out the package insert, to their horror and shock, they were blank. And they actually had a stamped phrase on them, left blank intentionally, something to that effect. We would like to know why this material is in there. And I'm going to go back to my original moniker, hashtag just wait. You see how things are unfolding. This cannot be safe for human beings. It's never been tested. I want to also remind you of that. It has never been tested in living human beings before. And I'm not sure why, because this should have been run through animals. There are some new preclinical studies coming out in animals, in animal tissues, and they're warning that it's dangerous and that it needs to be tested further before being used in humans. So why is it in these vials?
Welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. My name is Stu Peters. You can find me over at stupeters.tv. Humbled to be here. So last week on the Stu Peters Show, Dr. Jane Ruby broke on that show exclusively the findings of some Spanish researchers in the Pfizer vials they were able to obtain with a solid chain of custody by a law enforcement individual who secured the vials. They stored them appropriately. They diluted them according to Pfizer's manufacturer recommendations. And they found a toxic substance called graphene oxide. It went ballistic. It went absolutely ballistic, because what is graphene oxide and how does it work? So Dr. Jane Ruby is going to join us now. Dr. Jane, in addition to the Pfizer vial, now these Spanish researchers have reported that they got a hold of AstraZeneca, and also in the AstraZeneca, they're finding this graphene oxide. Before you start here on what graphene oxide is and why people should be concerned about this, I want to mention the fact checkers have gone into complete panic mode. It's all over everywhere since you broke that on my program. Damage control, propaganda spewing, printed lies in an attempt to discredit the messenger of truth because their lives depend on it. This is about money, control, compliance, and power, but imagine the consequences, like Dr. Brian Ardis just mentioned, that these people might one day face if the whole world is made aware of their participation in what could be the biggest mass murder, genocide, population deleting weapon of biowarfare that mankind has ever witnessed.
Yeah, Stu, thanks for having me back on the Alex Jones Show. Just so that people understand, you did a nice intro of sort of the chronology of this. This is a group out of Spain called La Quinta Columna. They are researchers, biostatisticians. They did use a law enforcement officer or official who is familiar with the proper chain of custody. They had a sealed Pfizer vial, and what they found in the vial appeared to be on the recommendation and assessment of experts in biochemical engineering, that this was a substance called graphene oxide. Now, they actually looked at it under a regular microscope and saw the gross pictures of it. It looks like a piece of Kleenex under some paint, if you will, the best way to describe it. Your producers have the pictures as I'm describing them. And so that was the regular microscope. Then they put it through an electron microscope to look at it on the molecular level. And that's when they saw what appeared to be a side-by-side photo between what they were looking at under the electron microscope. And they can bring it up if they could get that up. That would be great. And on the right-hand side is from an industrial publication of graphene oxide. And you can see that even though the magnification is slightly different from one to the other, the one that is on your left, sample RD1, one is the label for the Pfizer vial. They said that the volume across the space that they were looking at through the microscopes, both the regular and the electron, comprised about over 99% of this graphene oxide. Now, graphene oxide is a single molecule sheet, if you can think of a sheet. It actually is very toxic. There's also a study that I provided to the producers, if they could bring that up, and that is, there are many publications throughout that people can readily find in the public domain talking about the toxicity of graphene oxide. This is not a minute amount of it. Shortly thereafter, and they know that they have to look at multiple vials across different companies. They're going to start doing more intense chemical analyses on these. This is the group. This is their report, which you can get translated to English by a website called Orwell City that is not associated with them, but they do the Spanish to English translations. And so anyway, they went on to secure a vial from AstraZeneca that was sealed, and they followed the instructions on reconstituting it into the prescribed multiple doses, and then they looked at an individual dose under their microscopes, and that's when you see these particles with this very eerie black, like sort of, it looks like a black stocking, this black mesh that intertwines, classic for graphene oxide. And anyway, this single sheet material does break through the membranes of your cells, your individual cells. And that's very dangerous because the cell leakage results in the contents spilling out. That is a major signal to your body. Remember, I told you that this material goes everywhere in your body. Well, when this is injected either into your intramuscular, in your deltoid muscle, or in your subcutaneous tissue, the fat pad of your arm, it does, because it is a nanoparticle. Remember, we're not talking about a large molecule. We're talking about something at the nano level. And so it's able to almost immediately get into your blood compartment, get into your bloodstream. And because of that, it gets to everywhere in your body, and it can affect every cell in your body. So it actually destroys your cell membranes. It's got a certain ionic charge to it, which just opens like every door. We've talked about the blood-brain barrier, other protective barriers in the body. And so this is important. So getting back to the AstraZeneca, this was a second analysis. They went through the same steps. They put it under a regular microscope. They saw a similar picture. I don't remember what we named it, but we do have a picture of a side-by-side that looks like a piece of Kleenex under a wet paint. And it is marked, I believe, AstraZeneca. And so they repeated this process. They also put it under an electron microscope, and they saw the exact same, you're seeing the Pfizer analysis here, but they're seeing the exact same, these ugly bulbous, pieces in this material. Now, people have pushed back. Now what you're seeing here is the regular microscope for the AstraZeneca sample. And you see on the right, this is real graphene oxide. This is bona fide proven. On the left, where it says Muestra Vacuna, that is the AstraZeneca sample before they went to the electron microscope. So what we're seeing here is something we never knew before. And let me just say this. People have said to me, well, that's not listed on the ingredients of these companies. There are a lot of things that haven't been disclosed, okay? And if you remember correctly, there were countless pharmacists across the country who were asked to open the package insert that I've explained on many shows. That is it's a legal document that must accompany all products, drugs, medical devices. And when these pharmacists were asked to open the vials, the packages, and pull out the package insert, to their horror and shock, they were blank. And they actually had a stamped phrase on them, left blank intentionally, something to that effect. Well, that's not satisfactory. So that's not informed consent in my estimation in the pharmaceutical drug development world. That's nowhere near informing people of what's in something and getting their full and uncoerced consent to have this put into their bodies, particularly because this is experimental. And so this group in Spain, by the way, the AstraZeneca analysis was done in conjunction with another group of researchers in Spain called, I believe it was called Corrección Directo, something to that effect. This is all unfolding, Stu, literally hour by hour, day by day. And so we would like to know why this material is in there. And I'm going to go back to my original moniker, hashtag just wait. You see how things are unfolding. This cannot be safe for human beings. It's never been tested. I want to also remind you of that. It has never been tested in living human beings before. And I'm not sure why, because this should have been run through animals. There are some new preclinical studies coming out in animals, in animal tissues, and they're warning that it's dangerous and that it needs to be tested further before being used in humans. So why is it in these vials?
Dr. Jane Ruby, you can find her at drjaneruby.com. She has an encrypted and safe personal proton mail, Dr. Jane Ruby at protonmail.com. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Stu.
Of course. So as the world opens up to the knowledge of this injection, this inoculation, as we start to get more and more information, as we start to expose how many hidden agendas there were, going back all the way to remdesivir, since they announced the release of this COVID-19 virus. You remember the media was in a frenzy. This thing might come here. And we all knew right away from the beginning exactly what this was going to do. This was a part of a plan to unseat a duly elected president. But once they did that, they were able to find out that their dreams for population control, their dreams for ultimate complete subservience from everybody, their total control, their power, their enrichment could be taken so much further. This is a true, sick, demonic evil that we are fighting. Please go to Infowars.com and get those links that Dr. Bryan Ardis said from the Mayo Clinic. Make sure that you show them to every single person that you know that's considering this thing. There are hundreds of millions of lives at stake. God bless you, and I hope to see you next week on The Alex Jones Show. My name is Stu Peters. You can find me at stupeters.tv.
It's hard to believe that July 4th, 2021 is almost here. It's hard to believe that our country is literally fighting for its life. But for all the negative things that are happening, a lot of really positive things are happening as well. It's been said by many historians that things have to get really, really bad before they get better. And we're now reaching that point of no return, that tipping point. Global government and its planetary depopulation plan is now out in the open. And people realize the time for fun and games is over. That's why I wanted to report to you, the listeners and viewers of this transmission, the good news today, as well as the bad news. I've been contacted in the last 2 weeks by some of the top people in international media and national news as well as some of the folks at the highest levels of government, corporations, the private sector, you name it. And they've all told me the same thing. Alex, keep it up. You've been vindicated. And we're having a major breakthrough thanks to your work. Well, I wanted the listeners to know that it's you that have allowed this to happen. You have been just as important as I've been. And so at least now, world government is attacking, but we have a chance to defeat it because we've worked together for decades to warn people about what was coming. It sounded insane. It sounded crazy. It sounded dangerous. It sounded made up. It sounded like a horror movie, a science fiction dystopia, but it was real. And so we knew it was real, and we knew they were going to pull this. And so now that they've actually launched their operation, people aren't being completely caught flat-footed. So that's the real power of InfoWars. That's why it's more important than ever to help keep it on air. We have a July 4th special running right now with store-wide free shipping. Double Patriot Points is back as well, and up to 60% off best-selling items like X3. So please take action today and help keep InfoWars on the air now more than ever, because our mission is proving that it's incredibly accurate and has been part of the human destiny for liberty and freedom.